Hello, my name is Imke Feldmann, and my current favorite Power Query feature is the ability to create custom functions in Power Query to expand what Power Query can do out of the box right now. This is Power Query magic.
Welcome, Imke. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Vin, for having me. It's a great initiative.
Thank you. Thank you. Trying to spread the word that Power Query is this awesome thing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So, the guests that have been on this show are people that I've learned from. I've read their blogs and books and watched videos. There's a few people, though, that do things in Power Query. You're one of these people. There's a few people who do stuff in Power Query, and I just shake my head and I just go, how do you come up with this stuff? How do you know these things? So my first sort of question is, how have you become so advanced in your technical understanding of, the M language? How did you get to where you are with this?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think when I first saw what Power Query can do, I really thought, well, this really is the key to automate all the things in finance and also in other areas. And I just then thought, yeah, well, can it really do everything that finance people have to do? Or are there limitations to it? And so I just started exploring and how I created my knowledge about the Power Query M language effectively.
But have you studied other programming languages in the past?
Absolutely not. I mean,
no, it's this.
That's actually my first programming language I'm really good at, I would say. I mean, I haven't worked with VBA in the past a lot, I must say, although I've been working in finance for a lot of years before in very different positions. I actually started with Access in finance and then Excel. And so I did many data-driven stuff back then while using these small databases for finance purposes, and didn't do so much VBA actually back then. And when Power Query came, so I was just, wow, that is really the language that can handle large data sets as well, which VBA was simply too slow at. And yeah.
Could you see lots of practical uses then straight away? Was your brain just going, we can do this and we can do that?
Yeah, it was total overflow. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And I love your bio on your TechNet page, and it says, in my former life as finance director, head of accounting and management accountant controller, I fell in love with Microsoft self-service BI stack, and now I'm working as an independent consultant, living happily ever after. So I like that. Does that still hold?
Absolutely.
And so what was the driver then from becoming, a finance director into a consultant? How did you make the leap? What was the trigger?
Actually, yeah, that was a strange thing. So there's a story to it. In my role as a finance director, we eventually came to a point where we had to upgrade our Navision bookkeeping system.
Right.
So we were running on an old version, and then we had to make a move to a newer version. And I reached out to our service provider then to come up with an offer and to help us with the upgrade. And what I received back took my breath away a bit because the costs were so high. And I asked the service provider, well, how can this be? I mean, that looks as almost more as if we would buy it new and so on. And they said, well, basically, there are so many custom reports in your bookkeeping, in your system, and these will take a while to reconfigure and upgrade to the new system. And then I thought, well, reports in the system, and when the next upgrade comes, I have to pay a lot of money again for them to be upgraded. So I thought, well, there must be an alternative to this approach. And at that time, I discovered a thing that's called business intelligence back then. I mean, I have been quite ignorant before that, I must admit. And at that time, which was, I think, 2010, we started to build a multidimensional cube in analysis, in SQL Server analysis services. So I started a project which I headed for myself and hired a freelancer. First I read some books that said, well, this should be possible. And then I hired a freelancer, which I had confidence in, and I was asking him all things, whether this is really realistic and whether he would like to help me with it. And so basically we two created this cube, which should then hold all the reports for my finance department back then.
Right.
And while doing that, Power Pivot came up. And I stumbled across Rob Colley's blog post and said, well, hang on a second. They tried to enable that for basically self-service users as well. So people like me who could do that. And because I just, during that phase with the multidimensional stuff, I really liked doing that and designing how things should look like and so on. But I was definitely afraid of MDX, and of course I tried it out, and it was much too difficult to me at that time.
Yes, thankfully it's something I've totally avoided. So I never had to get into that world. So I'm about a year or two behind you, I think, in terms of where I got into this. So okay.
And then I followed up what Rob has been doing on his blog and started to dip my toes into Power Pivot. And then I thought, well, actually, that really made my heart beat faster. Being able to see the possibility that I could do things like that as well, build solutions for other people, and that basically made me look into it and started to a new career basically.
So did you you obviously liked, enjoyed getting into the data and stuff and playing about with it.
Yeah.
Was that something that you'd done before as well, just as part of, producing monthly reports and end of year packs and, getting into the numbers and slicing and dicing it? So you had a bit of an affinity that way already, and you knew how hard it was, the manual old way of doing stuff?
Yeah, I had quite various roles in finance, which helped me at the end to probably to spot the huge potential quickly. So I saw the vision that is behind it and the benefit it can bring from. So I've started as a business controller, basically creating all the reports, a couple of years. And then I was offered a position to lead the bookkeeping department, which was a bit, I thought about it for a couple of moments because I thought, well, I love my reports and I love controlling, but of course, I was interested to see the bookkeeping side as well. And so I took over that position, and this really gave me very, very interesting additional perspectives. And after that, I was offered, a couple of years later, I was offered the position as a finance director And with that also came the responsibility for IT and also the whole auditing process. And that brought some further perspectives to the to finance and what should be done there. So I think these different my experiences in different finance roles finally made it fairly obvious what sort of a revolution we were going to see with that. And that was Power Pivot alone. We are not speaking Power Query at the time.
Well, that's it. That's you know, that's where so many of us started.
Yeah.
Is from, you know, reading Rob Colley's book or going on the blog and, you know, finding out about this stuff and just being, you know, blown away by it.
Yeah.
And did you manage to bring along some people that you work with along were there other equally excited people, or were they a bit more nervous, or what was the?
Not really. So my colleagues from my old company, they didn't join me in that.
Board. They didn't. Yeah.
In that enthusiasm. No.
It's not for everybody. There is just this sort of thing that it just resonates with certain people. It doesn't with everyone, and it's the old way of doing it, and you know, it's just repetitive, but it works, and it's the old way.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult actually to bring some people along on the journey. You have to really, I don't know, show the end result and show them how quick it is. But I think there's quite a bit of nervousness, even still today, about some of these new tools that have been. Yeah, you know, we know they've been around, but. And then, you know, some people would just leave it there. You know, their jobs got better. They've developed this stuff, but then you seem to have really got into the whole community part of this and getting in there and getting on to. Let me give you a little list here of what I did. My little bit of minor bit of research. So I found you on the Microsoft Developer Network from July 2013. So that's 8 years ago now. TechNet forum reply February 15. You did 1,600 replies on there. Power BI community June 2015, 3,100 posts on there. And then you started a blog in August 2015, or at least that's when it sort of seems like I could find
you. Really did your homework.
I know.
I'm impressed.
But all around that sort of era, you know, 2013, 14, 15. So what was you were sort of really getting involved with things here. So how come? Did you just enjoy helping people on those things, or how did you get involved in all these forums?
Actually, that was my way to learn things.
Right.
Yeah. I was just lazy to create my own examples. I just said, well, let's have a look what other people are asking and what use cases they have, and so I just started answering questions. And of course, I mean, it's great to see that you can help other people, and and so it was basically a win-win situation for me to be in the forums and asking questions. It was basically there. This is where I built my skills, basically.
In terms of the community, are you also on like German-speaking platforms as well?
No, I only do English. No, I just do. These days, I only do the Power BI forum. Right. The main Power BI forum. Yeah.
Yeah. And still learning from people's posts.
No, I'm not there that often anymore. So I moved my community activities towards building stuff. So the last years, I'd say I started to create tools.
Yes, which I'd like to talk to you a little bit later on. I want to talk about something there. So, and
so I've
different techniques.
Shifted my activities basically.
Yeah, there's not enough time to do everything, is there?
No.
Plus, do a job.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
You want to do everything, but and then did you co-found the Berlin Power BI user group?
Yes, I co-founded it, but I moved away from Berlin a couple of years.
Where are you now?
So I'm living at the Baltic coast. So that's about 2.5 hours drive north of Berlin.
Right. Yeah. And how did you end up sort of founding that user group? What made you do that?
Yeah, it's just while being in Berlin, I just wanted to spread the word, and I heard about other people founding user groups, and I thought, well, there's nothing in Berlin, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And was it a case of, was that in the actual proper Power BI days, or was that Excel, modern Excel days?
No, that was definitely Power BI days. I
okay.
cannot remember when I did that, but
yeah,
but definitely Power BI days.
Early-ish on though, in the early development days.
Yeah.
And then, so you studied business at university. Where did this? So I guess, and you've done sort of finance roles, and you've said that you didn't really have any programming type background, but did you grow up with computers and playing about with those sorts of things, or no?
No, absolutely not. No.
I'm just trying to get root at how come you're into the code. You seem to understand M code. You seem to have got into the you seem to have got into the matrix, Imke. You're in there. But you just seem to have got into it. You didn't have any sort of leading in story. You just
I would say I went into it like a child would land in it now. I mean, it's just you want to you see what that you can build stuff with it, and then you try it as long as it's working. So it's just head first.
And have there sort of been any particular sort of moments along your sort of career path, or any particular people that have influenced, where you've ended up now, whether, during your financial controller life or becoming a consultant, or...
Good question.
Tricky question.
Yeah. I would say no, not really certain people, but maybe I had, when I was at university, we had some computer courses there as well. And I really liked it, but I was very shy at the time. And when it came to loops and recursions, I didn't get any further, so I couldn't learn that, and I was very, very frustrated and disappointed as well. And so this was something that was always in the back of my mind. And when I then started to learn the M language, I was really keen to basically overcome this old frustration of mine, to finally learn it. So maybe that gave me some drive to it.
Yeah, some sort of just slight psychological, emotional link to wanting to push yourself to get through that sort of that feeling. Oh, okay.
And back then there was no internet where you could look up things. And so I was really struck and had no way of, for me at the moment, at that time, I felt I have no chance to get any further here. And so with the internet having all these informations nowadays, it really, I had finally the ability to learn things. And actually when, of course, it didn't come easy to me, and I started to look into other concepts and other languages as well. When I couldn't solve things in M, I started to look into other languages. Okay. And then the concept of algorithms. I learned to hear about algorithms, because before that, these concepts I have never heard before of these concepts. And then I just started to look up how, or saw in Wikipedia how they present things, how certain algorithms can be solved in different languages and so on. And that basically gave me an idea about the general concepts of these things, and some hints how to tackle things in M.
Yeah, and are you a avid reader, learner? Do you do you read, blogs and articles and books these days, or is it via the forums that you're getting most of your knowledge, or where are you learning from?
Yeah, mostly from blog posts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any shout outs to anybody?
No, Chris Webb, of course, when it comes to Power Query. Chris Webb is the man, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's just one of those people, again, he's probably one of the other ones on that list of me going, how do you come up with this stuff? Where do you get these ideas from?
Yeah, so I learned so many things from him. But nowadays I really have to give a shout out to Ben Gribaudo as well, because he has a really excellent systematic introduction of into the M language. So that hasn't been available when I learned the language, but nowadays if people ask me, well, I want to learn the M language, where should I start? I always point them towards the Ben Gribaudo series, because he really has it in a compact form and also in a sequence. It basically is an ebook, a book in blog form, I would say.
I'll put some links to Ben's stuff in the chat. Hopefully have him on the show one day. Yeah. Because he seems to have, again, be one of those people who just gets into it
really,
and you just go, okay, that's
did good such a great job with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And we touched on it briefly earlier, that you've been developing some tools and things. So talk to me about the PowerBi Cleaner tool as well, because I'm specifically interested in that one. So if you just give us a brief overview of what it is and what sort of technology you use to create it and how you went about it and what problem it was trying to solve.
Yeah, so the PowerBi Cleaner displays all columns and measures from your Power BI files or models, and indicates if and where they are used. And also it displays the size of columns in your model. So if you've worked on your model quite a while and designed and redesigned and moved things around, then you might ask yourself, do I need all this stuff? Or maybe when things are starting to get slow, you might ask yourself, well, I have to clean up my model. Especially when you work as a consultant, you should do things like that. So I developed it to just see which fields are used and where, and which fields I can eventually delete from my model. And I'm having the third generation for it in my drawer. I'm about to publish it. So in the third generation, we will then also be able to connect analysis services models to it. So nowadays, in the current version, you can analyze Power BI, simple Power BI desktop files in it, and check whether in that file where fields belong to. And the other option that you have now is to analyze golden data sets, basically. So if you publish a data set to the Power BI service, you can connect to it and create other reports. And with my tool currently, you can first retrieve all reports that are connected to a certain data sets, and also check which fields are used in all these different reports. But what we couldn't do until now was to analyze the same things towards models that are published on a SQL server in analysis services, basically. So now when you have models on your local or Azure SQL analysis services instances, you would then be able to monitor all connected reports as well.
This sort of tool, though, it's just so useful. It's one of those ones that it just becomes, like you say, but for consultants, but for anybody, or inheriting somebody else's model and just going, what's in here, what's used, what's irrelevant, because best will in the world, we're all told to only import the columns we need, but everybody always imports everything and then never gets round to getting rid of the stuff they didn't use, and builds a few helper formulas that then never go down the right path and then just never get deleted out of the model. So it's pretty important. Did you invent this or develop this to primarily to help you?
Yes,
or
of
did
course.
You think
I did
so
it
selfish.
For me. So
totally
selfish. No, of course I knew that if it helps me, it will help other people as well, but it really resulted from my own work and own pain. So I created it. And the thing is, because I only know one language, it's all developed in the M language. So it's all it's all Power Query based, which are my other tools as well. I also have a Power BI comparer tool, which allows you to compare different versions of Power BI files. And that is also very helpful for me. I use it oftentimes. Actually, you can also compare the Power Query parts from Excel files or Dataflows with it as well. So I use it quite often for all my ETL stuff that I design. And this is also completely built in with Power Query and M.
Yeah, and that's the part that I'm just can never see myself getting to that level of understanding of Power Query to want to develop a tool, and certainly probably never have the ability, even if I did want to. Like it seems to be this sort of there's a little hurdle point where you just sort of have to go so far into the M and get such a good understanding that you can then do what you're doing and build amazing tools. But you can do simple stuff in M and maybe never even have to get into M with the Power Query interface. So there's this whole range of skills you can have just inside Power Query itself, or inside M and Power Query. Just endless.
And that's why why Power Query is so great, because it starts with a absolute superb user interface, which makes so many difficult and boring tasks so easy to do. But you don't have to stop there. You can just go on and on and on and really take it to the limits. So that's really the great thing about it. I
asked a similar question of your friend Lars Schreiber when he was on the show, and I said, what drives you to create these tools? And he said as well, just for his own personal benefit largely, but then to share it around. But I think, let's just talk about the Power BI Cleaner tool. One of the features in there is you've gone the extra step where you can actually export the cleanup code to Tabular Editor 3.
Yeah, exactly.
And you just go, well, you're just going whole end to end here, and you'd go in the extra mile to say, okay, well, I can tell you what to clean up, and I can give you a script to actually automate the cleanup. It's just having the time and dedication to do this sort of thing is just crazy. And you're currently just releasing this free as well, yeah?
Yeah. So, but that's the thing about Power. Of course, I like to share it with the community, but sometimes I thought, well, maybe I could do some freemium stuff, basically, where you can say, well, you give a basic version to the community and get some money back for the real good stuff, because honestly, there's so much time that goes into tools that. But currently, that's really difficult with Power Query, because we cannot protect the code in there. So that's part of the technology this is not possible currently.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to see an option in Power Query that lets us create our own ribbons and program our own Power Query logic in a way that we can do now in Excel, which basically then would allow us to protect the code as well and give even better user interfaces to people. So I said, well, that my most favorite feature is to be able to share functions with others, or create our own functions that we can then share with others. That's great, but even more great would be that we could adjust the user interface and basically put functions and methods in there that people can use just by clicking the buttons and not have to do the intimidating thing to copy functions from sources and things like that, because that's what I see. I mean, I have created a lot of functions that package certain steps into digestible things to make it even more easier for users to perform certain tasks. But for many users, that is still too complicated or too intimidating to work with things like that. And it would be so great if we could just add our own ribbons to the Power Query, that where users can simply click buttons and do things like that.
So when did you come across Power Query?
I don't know when that was, but I know where that was, and it was at a SQL Server user group in Berlin. And at that time, Markus Raths introduced Power Query and told the group that, look here, there's a new tool around, and I was like, what? Yeah, that was really...
So you were going to SQL Server user groups sort of early on?
Yes. Yeah.
So you sort of learned from those. How long have you been going to those?
No, I just went there to see what these guys are talking about and if there's something in it for me. I think it was my first or my second one. Yeah.
And where would your career have gone if you hadn't gone to that meetup group, do you reckon?
Yeah, good question. I have no idea. I mean, I made the decision to work as a consultant because I knew what Power Pivot was about. Yeah. So I don't think it would have substantially changed my careers, so to speak. But it was good to see it at the early stages, definitely. Yeah.
And you moved from being an accountant to setting up your own business and consultancy. Would you have any advice for anyone thinking of doing the same?
I mean, it really, it is a tough question. So it really depends on what you're passionate about and how much money you need. And definitely. I mean, it's really, I cannot give general recommendations. No.
So why did you become a consultant?
Yeah, just to work, to be my own boss, basically, really to be my own boss, basically. And also, for me, getting my hands dirty again, building things, creating stuff, which I can see improve the work and life of my clients. Is really what gives me joy and satisfaction. And this is something that when you work as a manager, then you get different feedback or different kind of feedback. And this definitely has been a good move for me, because that is really something that motivates me much more than anything I did in my life or not anything, but in general. For me, it's much more fulfilling, and it has almost only upsides for me. So there's no big compromises I have to make in my daily work.
Yeah, I just find the variety is awesome as well, and you just sort of have exposure to all these different clients. It's a really sort of good experience. Okay, so how do you find the awareness level of Power Query? Are people aware of it that you come across, or is it still this big unknown feature?
Yeah, it is growing, but we are still at a very, very low level. But I mean, on the other hand, look into Excel. Everyone would say, well, of course I'm using Excel and I'm good at Excel and I'm using advanced stuff, and then take an objective look at which tools most of the people actually use in Excel. That might be also very much room for improvement. Or so, yeah, people use still quite a small amount of features from Excel. The usage of Power Query can certainly be improved.
Well, I saw that they recently announced like they're changing the Dataflow connector. And you're using Dataflows a lot. So the Dataflow connector from Power BI Dataflow to Power Platform Dataflow, is that just a rebranding, or is it something actually practical under the hood?
I don't think that's a rebranding, but they published a new connector that can connect to both the Power BI Dataflows and the Data Platform Dataflows. So you don't have to, you have one connector for two different data flows.
Okay.
And actually the Power Platform Dataflows have quite some really, really interesting features that are much superior to Power BI Dataflows, because you can do dynamic data sources there. So when it comes to web queries, we still have a lot of limitations, unfortunately, in Power Query than in Power BI Desktop. And Power BI Dataflows have the advantage that you can basically disable the privacy levels and still be able to publish in the service, which is still a limitation in Power Query in integrated Power BI reports, basically.
Okay.
So that's one reason to move to Dataflows. But the other thing is, when it comes to dynamic web data sources, you can only refresh them in Power Platform Dataflows. So quite a nice feature.
Yeah. Last year, I built a couple of reports that utilized Dataflows, and I found there were a few traps and a few annoyances. Has that got better? Are you using Dataflows on a regular basis with your clients now?
I'm using them. Yeah, I'm using them, but I only after a couple of bloody noses, to be honest. And I'm using certain tricks and leave out certain things. So you have to know about the limitations to use them successfully in production. So there's still some work to do, but they are really good enough for me and have many advantages for me. So I'm using them in customer solutions as well. But it's not, you cannot jump in blindly into them, I would say.
And how is your sort of work split now? Are you purely Power BI, or are you in Excel a little bit as well?
No, I'm I'm only using Excel if clients, if I get clients who want solutions in there, but I still do that. So so it just depends on how the work comes in. But I love developing integrated solution with modern Excel. It's really something there are many, Excel has so many great options still when it comes to data entry and getting immediate results, and to combine traditional spreadsheet Excel with Power Query and VBA. You can build really, really nice solutions in there still.
Yes.
Yeah. We really have amazing options nowadays to create reports and applications. That's really fantastic. And I must say that I also have been using Power Automate very much for many solutions. So
what sort of things?
Just with automation of month-end processes, sending out mails, reminder mails automatically, checking if things have been done, checking if certain files have been uploaded to the desired locations, orchestrating FTP file transports from FTP to Azure Blob Storage or SharePoint, things like that.
So you're going full Microsoft stack. So yeah, so I've dabbled about with Power Automate and done a few things and a few automations, but there's some real little frustrations in there. And I guess it's just not knowing the software well enough. Power BI, same thing can be said. What's your take on it?
Yeah. So some things are really amazing and self-explanatory, but other things are extremely frustrating. So and what I really what I'm really missing in Power Automate is a native and quick way to use Power Query to do all the transformations. So I find it really hard sometimes to do basic transformations with the native Power Automate tools. And although you have basically nowadays 2 options to work with Power Query in Power Automate. You can do it via the SQL connector or via Dataflows, basically. It would be so great and so much easier if we are talking about self-service tools. I mean, we have Power Query in Excel and Power BI. And when people want to use Power Automate, they have to learn at least 2 new languages if they want to be able to do the data transformation.
Okay.
That's something that I find a bit frustrating and sad, to be honest. But yeah, that's it. But you can do amazing things with it. So I definitely don't want to miss it.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so in my interview with Lars a little while back, he introduced this idea of the worst presentation moment. Mm-hmm. So have you had any presentations go horribly wrong or had any terrible moments like that you're willing to share?
Yeah, I mean, my most horrible experience was during an Ignite presentation. Of course, it was the biggest crowd I ever had, and it was the worst presentation fail, and yeah, it was really terrible. But yeah, I'm still alive. Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah, so everything went wrong. So the demos didn't work and computer crashed, and at the end my brain crashed as well. So I was really, it was really horrible.
Oh no, that's not good. We survive. Right, so let's do the little section called 5 impossible questions. These are 5 totally unfair questions that I don't expect anyone to get right. I wouldn't know the answer unless I'd look them up myself. Okay, question 1. We are in the Power Query editor and we are looking at the applied steps. We've loaded like an Excel file, for example, using Power Query. There's the applied steps, the top, etc. What steps can't you right-click on and rename?
The first. I can't rename the first step source.
Correct. Any other steps?
Nope, I don't know.
Apparently the navigation step.
Okay.
Yeah, can't rename it.
Okay.
Have to do it in the advanced editor if you want to rename it. There you go. Okay, next question. Is there a limit on how many columns you can pull in from an Excel file using Power Query? So you refer to a whole sheet in Power Query and you say pull in. Is there some limit?
I have no idea.
No, there isn't. You can pull in all 16,384 columns.
Okay, I missed my 50-50 chance.
Yeah, you should have just had a guess.
No.
Okay. A bit harsh, that one. Right, we're on the Power Query Editor Home tab, and there's the Advanced Editor button. Underneath that button, there's one called Manage, and there's a little drop down. Name any item in that Manage button. Under that little Manage drop down. Yeah. No cheating, Imke. No cheating. No looking at your screen.
I think that's duplicate. I think you can.
Yes.
You can reference or duplicate, so this queries things.
And reference. Yeah. Excellent. full points.
Okay.
Okay. In the Power Query editor screen, okay, over in the Power BI Applied Steps side panel, there is a blue hyperlinked label between properties and applied steps. There's a little blue hyperlink called All Properties. What appears when you click on that little blue hyperlink?
Wouldn't it be the same like the properties field on the main tab? So that's basically the comments you can enter for your whole query, basically. So
you get the main properties window.
Top level comments, as far as I know.
Yes, excellent. Bonus point, do you know any of the checkboxes that appear in those query properties? There's a little couple of checkboxes as well.
God, is it?
So there's fast, there's enable load to report and include in report refresh. And there's actually a difference to Excel. Excel has something else in there. Excel has fast data load.
No, I didn't. I must admit, I don't know what. I'm not familiar with this expression, fast data load.
Okay, last question. This one's a bit super hard, right? So I'm in a blank query, and I type equals hashtag shared to turn it into, and then I turn it into a table to get the big list of all the functions in Power Query. What's the shortest function name in Power Query? What's the shortest M language function in terms of number of characters?
I mean, hashtag date would be a short function name, but there might...
Yeah, like a proper function.
It's not in the list?
Yeah. So text.at or type.is.
Really? That's the shortest.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, weird. All right, so what's the longest? Any idea what the longest is?
What's the longest?
No? Okay, it's hexagon smart API dot generate parametric filter by filter source type.
Never heard of it. So there,
can't believe you didn't get that.
You still have some things in there that shouldn't be used in desktop at all, or shouldn't be used in the user phase. Never heard of that.
Okay, so crystal ball moment. So what would you like to see in terms of future developments in Power BI? So have you got any user voice ideas out there, or things for people to vote for? What do you want to see change?
So one thing that I would really, really like to see is the ability to break the refresh chain. That's how I call it. So Power Query is really great, but with many people say, well, it's a great tool, but it's so slow. It's so slow. And of course, if you can do many things that will slow down Power Query that you can avoid. So using the right techniques will definitely avoid certain things to run terribly slow. But there are limitations to it. And one of the basic structures in Power Query that is that it will always try to go back to the source. And even with using buffers, you oftentimes cannot stop that. So as a last resort to complex queries or to speed things up, what you can do is to load intermediate results to your Excel sheet or to Azure Blob Storage or somewhere else, and then re-import it back. So you basically stage some stuff and prevent the query going back to the source. And this can have a tremendous effect on refresh speed, just to split it up into certain chunks that really buffer the results. So this is something that I would really, really, really like to see in Power Query.
That would be cool. That would be good, actually. Yeah, it's frustrating sitting there waiting for your edits to or fully refresh, and that would, that's good.
Yeah, it's terrible. It can be terrible. Yeah. And another thing that I would really like to see is to make web authentication for OAuth sources easier. So we more and more have to access web-based data sources that should probably be secured. And if I see how comparably easy it is to build custom functions in Power Automate for those sources compared to how basically terrible and it is in Power Query to do basically the same thing. I am so envy about the options in Power Automate to connect to OAuth sources compared to Power Query. That's really something I would like to be much easier in Power Query.
And sort of what's in the plans for the coming months and the next 6 months or so? What are you up to?
So I'm very much still in tooling, and Dataflows. I would definitely. I think I'm finished with that. I will start to give more focus on certain Dataflow features, what we can do with them, and
Excellent.
But apart from that, nothing special that comes to my mind, honestly.
Any sailing?
Not currently. No, not this year. Yeah.
And as we sort of wrap things up, I'd like to ask my guests if they have had any brushes with famous people, or there's little known facts about them, or have you met anybody famous over the years?
No, not really. I mean, the highest concentration on famous people I've ever met was my first visit to the MVP summit. So that was that was really a big moment, I would say. Yeah.
And I think we're at the same MVP. We sort of became MVP at the same time. So we're at the same summit.
In 2017? That was really celebrities everywhere. Yeah.
No, it was good. It's a shame we can't do that anymore.
Absolutely. That is really so amazing.
Yeah. And one requirement of coming on to the Power Query Magic podcast is you need to leave 2 of your own articles or videos or blog posts, whatever you've got, your most popular and your favorite. So what are you going to leave us?
Yes, that's the starting article of my Profit and Loss series.
Okay.
So that's quite an old article. I think I started in 2016 with a series about how to create profit and loss statements in Power BI, and that's definitely the most popular. And the one I like most, or my favorite. I mean, my favorite posts are really about the tools I've built, probably the cleaner. It's not a particularly good post, but I think it's a really cool project, which I really like.
Yeah.
But I mean, another thing that I really was so proud about to finally get my head around, because it was really demanding for me, was an article where I created a solver function with Power Query, basically. So to a goal seek mechanism, which with an algorithm that I looked up by myself in the internet.
Wow.
So first I had to find out which sorts of algorithms there are to create a solver, and then to write it in M code with just a couple lines of code.
Wow.
That was really a personal achievement, a really good personal achievement for me, I must say. Yeah.
Do you find you do some of these things where you have this sort of euphoria moment, but no one else really cares?
Actually, I had a similar things with the matrix multiplication algorithm that that took me quite a while to find the right algorithm and then translate it into M. So that was an interesting rainy Sunday fest Yeah, yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so finally, if we were to strand you on a desert island and you were only
Okay.
allowed to take one item with you, but it has to begin with M, what would you take
Yeah.
with you?
I would bring a music playing device with me. Definitely.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Excellent, like an MP3 player or something.
exactly.
Excellent. And what would be
Mhm.
on the music player? What sort of
Oh,
music would you have?
that would be quite a mixture. But yeah, I would say my bread and butter music is Gary Burton or Pat Metheny, some jazzy things. But I also do lots of electronic music or classical stuff,
Right,
so
yeah, bit of everything.
things like that.
Excellent. Okay,
Yeah.
all good. Right, so Imke, brilliant having you on the show. Thank you very much. I'll leave links to all the blog articles and other bits and pieces. And yeah, I know I've learned a lot from you over the years. And please keep sharing the magic. And we will catch you later.
I will do that. Thanks, Win, for having me. Bye.